Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hello everyone. How are you all doing? This is a rare and live podcast with all of you. I had to do it live because, well, I have had quite the schedule. I've just gotten back from a trip to Vegas and I was there for about 4 or 5 days. And I've got lots to share with you tonight. Lots to share with you. This is going to be a very powerful podcast episode for all of you. We're going to be talking about the Philosopher's Stone. And just so I make sure you guys can hear me okay, right? I think you can hear me. Yeah, you can. You can hear me. All right. Oops. What did I do? Hold on a second here, guys. I have done something because that's what happens when we go live. All right, there we go. All right, I'm just going to say hi to Bonnie, Celeste, CB's daughter, Stephanie. Thank you so much for your support. And to all of you, if there's any way you could support my podcast, it is just simply by leaving me a review, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, wherever you are listening to the podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. It's one of the best ways you can support my work, this podcast. It just helps out a lot. So, the Philosopher's Stone. This is going to be really important information that I can't wait to share with you. This was shared to me and a lot of other people at the event I was at by Matthias DeStefano. I was at the Arcadia event in Vegas from Thursday through Sunday. And so many incredible downloads that I've received over the last year and even couple of years since 2021 actually got further unpacked and confirmed through listening to this talk. And I'm going to take you guys through that information. But before I do, I have a very big announcement to make for all of you. The Forbidden Journey Retreat 2024 is now open for you to reserve your ticket. It is going to be held April 24th to the 27th, right around the time of the Scorpio full moon, one of the most intense full moons there are. And if there's anything about death, rebirth, and transformation, it is the sign of Scorpio. But also during this particular period, we are going to have one of the most powerful astrological alignments of the entire year happening. Jupiter and Uranus are going to be coming conjunct in Taurus. This is an extremely powerful alignment for breakthroughs, for liberation, especially when it comes to your own belief systems, how you're learning, expanding things, especially also when we think about Taurus for your reality, your physical reality, your value system. All of these things are going to be supporting the next Forbidden Journey retreat. If you are interested in coming, if you listen to the testimonials, I know so many of you reached out to me that you're definitely wanting to come to the next one. you can now reserve your ticket. Link for that is in the description below this video. If you're listening on the podcast, it's in the show notes. All right. So again, I want to remind you all that this is on a first come, first serve basis, on the sense of you get to choose your room, where you want to stay. All of that is given as the tickets are booked. This is going to be an extremely high frequency container that we are going to create. For anyone who was at the retreat in September, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is something that is very difficult to recreate. And not only that, Christina will be back with me. She'll be flying back in from New Zealand to facilitate the retreat with me, which I'm really excited about. And I have some new things that I'm going to be offering you at this retreat. One of the things that I'm going to tell you about later, because I experienced an extremely powerful third eye opening from this technique, and I'm going to take you all through it at the next Forbidden Journey retreat. All right, so all the details for that are in the description below. And of course, if you have any questions about it, just email me, Nicole at NicoleFrolick.com, and I'm happy to get that information to you. All right, let's get into the meaty stuff, the good stuff, the Philosopher's Stone. So when it comes to Hermetics, the Philosopher's Stone, right? I think many of us have watched Harry Potter. We've also seen the movie, The Philosopher's Stone. This Philosopher's Stone, this idea, this concept is considered to be the great work of any philosopher, right? It was considered to be the magnum opus. And so it is considered to be a legendary substance that is capable of turning these base metals into gold, right? It's like the purest form of alchemy. And it is also considered to be the elixir of life. It was considered to be essential for rejuvenation, for achieving immortality. At least through the stories, this is what is told. However, truly what the Philosopher's Stone was really about was not really about that. Specifically, at least in the way that it was being shared. So for many centuries, a lot of people through the philosophers who would share this information sought after this goal of alchemy because it was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, all right? Enlightenment, heavenly bliss, this was all the promised stuff of the Philosopher's Stone. And within the stone of the philosopher, there is so much symbolism. There's a wealth of symbolism here. And when it's understood, it actually becomes a cipher of creation, which, on which correlations can be added and expand its meaning and significance. And it becomes one of the most crucial symbols when it comes to alchemy. And the reason is because it is the key to unlocking the mysteries of our hidden universe. And let me just say, this confirms my womb of activation course that I did with many of you, in the last year. So this is great. So I didn't realize that the womb of activation was actually tapping into the Philosopher's Stone, which I'm going to talk to you guys about later. So that was like super cool for me to kind of see and how that went. So let me share with you some of the information that was shared with all of us at this event on Thursday last week. Matthias DeStefano gave this talk and informed a lot of us. And I'm not sure if some of the information is already available. He spoke about some of this last year, but I don't know if it was made available online. So when we think about the ancient times and philosophers, right, when it comes to this idea, there was always a struggle between the philosophers and then the politicians and anyone who was religious, right? So the philosophers were the dreamers and the politicians and the religious people were very realistic. It was all about realism. And so philosophers were known to come up with all these ideas. They were great at making ideas, expanding on ideas, and just giving us more and more ideas to help expand our minds, our belief systems, all of that. But the problem with philosophers is that they're always seemed to be this very big block that came with their ideas. And that was that they never talked about how to actually physically manifest these ideas. All right. It was just some elusive process or idea. And so this is a common block in the spiritual community in general. We see this still being very pervasive in the spiritual community, where there's a lot of ideas being talked about. There's a lot of spiritual messages and jargon that is delivered. But, when it comes to manifesting it, there aren't necessarily always clear and practical methods to follow. And so the philosophers were always known for having these really great ideas, but not taking care of the practical side of life. Now, we see this. I'm sure many of you can relate to this, right? I can relate to this to some degree. This is part of the reason why, thanks to Dave Kaiser, who's in our alchemy program, dubbed me like a practical mystic, which I then took on because I love that, because I feel like it's such a crucial part of our experience here that it doesn't matter how much we are into the esoterics and we're learning and we're meditating and we're visualizing and we're getting that heart-mind coherence, that if we're not taking practical steps on how to actualize it, then we're missing the very essence and the nature of what we're here to do in this lifetime. And so what happened is, because these philosophers had all of these great ideas, but no way of taking care of the practical side of life, what happens is the politicians stepped in, right? The politicians, anyone who was in power, the empires, they would step in and start creating systems, because what happened is a lot of chaos was created through all these ideas of like, oh, we can maybe try this or try that, or like, what if this worked or what if that worked? And again, it was still in all of the idea-like concepts. So the problem again is the philosophers would deny these ideas by the politicians because they were not part of their ideas. They were part of this system. And this we see also in our world, where there are systems in place and we just don't want to follow them because they really kind of, well, one, a lot of it infringes on our own personal energetic sovereignty. But the problem is that none of us have really come up with systems that actualize the ideas into existence. And that's where we're going to really shift the world, when we start doing that. And so what happens is the constellation, the Bear, in our sky, was known as this place where everyone followed, right? It was kind of like typical of, or representation of what we were meant to follow in the sense of the systems, also kind of like our North Pole and how we manifest things. And so this is known as the constellation Ursa Major in our sky. It is also known as our North. And it basically tells us what to do in time and space. And that's what these systems that are in place in our world are trying to tell us to do, is they're trying to tell us what to do in our time and space. But when it comes to geology, the bear actually is symbolizing the North Pole, right? The bear represents the North Pole, the magnetic North Pole of our planet. So our actual body, our biology, is bound to this magnetic North Pole. And so what happens is, because of the electrical and magnetic forces of our body, through our brain, through our heart, and our blood, which holds iron, we think about what does a compass do when we're trying to find our north, right? You use iron to find your needle, to find your north, which I'll get into in a bit. This is how our mind is always looking for the north, always looking for where we need to go and what we need to do in time and space. And so this is kind of like how we're actually biologically tied and bound to the North Pole of this planet. And despite anyone being even remotely disconnected to extremely disconnected from this actual planet, your brain is still constantly seeking out the north. And so your mind is naturally drawn to it, even when you're not thinking about it. You're just constantly like, where is my north? And when we think about the inner compass, right, our intuition is what we feel, and it is very much tied to our heart. The blood, which holds our iron, pumps through our heart, right? And so it's carried through our feelings. And the more attuned we are to our feelings, the more we are actually drawn to our north. And we can say that as our destiny. So I want to just put a side note here. This is why it's really important to monitor your iron levels in your body and why you don't want low iron levels. And a lot of those iron levels, like, it's really hard. You got to really know what you're doing if you're vegetarian or vegan to make sure that you get that. And of course it is possible. But this is another reason why having like high protein in your diet is extremely important to maintain those iron levels in your bloodstream. So now, when we think about the north, right, the north, the geomagnetic North Pole, we also know that we also have the aurora borealis up there. And this is considered like it's a field of light in different colors. And this acts as the crown of our north. In many ways, you could think of it as the crown chakra, but it's also called King Arthur. And this is what Matthias was talking to us about. Now, King Arthur is not exactly a person, but a place. And so when we think about just even in our civilizations in the past, in ancient history, all of the people followed the king's rule, right? So wherever the king would go, the people would follow. And so this aurora borealis acts as our crown, as our King Arthur. And so it activates, and this is how it helps us know where to go. And so last year, Matthias spoke about the North Pole actually moving from the west to the east over the last 5 years. And when the North Pole had its major shift, geologically within the magnetic force, actually happened during a very important time that we all went through. This actually happened during 2020 and 2021. All right. Now, what happened in 2020 and 2021? Well, we all were forced to go inside and be with ourselves and be silent. This is where a lot of self-reflection happened. This is where a lot of us maybe spent more time meditating. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. And so the North Pole actually was in Canada, and it's now situated in Russia. Okay. And so there were actually deeper reasons why we collectively had to go inside during that event. And I'm not here to say like that event was a good thing or whatever. And I will say it was a good event on some levels. And of course it wasn't a good event on other levels. But whenever we're looking for growth, it's never easy, right? And a lot of growth, a lot of awakening was triggered through this. And why? Because we all lost our sense of north, and we all had to go inwards to start kind of reconnecting. Where did our north go? What are we doing? Which direction am I going in my life? Where is my destiny? Right? All of these questions started to come up in the collective. Like, is this the job that I'm supposed to be working? Is the person this I'm supposed to be still married to? All of these questions were really coming up to the forefront during this time. So when the North Pole moves, Matthias was calling this is like considered philosophy, or it was also called the Philosopher's Stone. All right, so the Philosopher's Stone is really equivalent to our Earth and a way that we actually manifest on this planet. So the problem, though, is like I said earlier, is that philosophers had extreme difficulty actually manifesting. They had all the ideas, but none of the actual manifestation. And so a philosopher who could actually manifest is one who would find his way to and through the Philosopher's Stone. So that was crucial. And that was why that alchemy was so sought after and so important, because Otherwise, it was just ideas, but there was no physical manifestation. So when you do have the physical manifestation, it is said that you have worked through the Philosopher's Stone, you have found the Philosopher's Stone. And it is how we anchor our heart and mind into this planet, into this reality. So our heart and mind coherence is represented by this sword, right? When we think about our body as our physical body, we have this sword like being like, so when you think of a sword, it comes across your shoulders, right? So the sword pierces through the mind, goes down through the heart. And this is how this, when the pole shift happens, it was said that the sword of the North Pole moved around looking for its stone, okay, in planet Earth. Now remember that your thoughts and your feelings, which are moved through your blood, right, your iron, are all controlled by this magnetic North Pole. Whether you realize it or not, a lot of this is controlled by our magnetic North Pole of this planet. So the question then becomes, if manifestation can only occur through the sword meeting the stone, where is the stone, right? And so the stone is related to places on Earth. So Matthias said there were 3 places on this Earth where it was actually considered the stone. And it is the North Pole, it is the South Pole, and it is this other place in South Egypt, which happens to be inside the Nile. And the reason why these places are there are because they're the land of no one. No one actually owns it. It's not ruled by any empire, any government. And so, but it also means there's no manifestation there either, right? Because there's no people there, there's nothing there. So, of course, we all know that we are physical representations of this earth. Our body, we are like little cells, okay, microcosms of the macrocosm. So what is in the earth is also within us. And we actually have a place within our body that is the Philosopher's Stone. And so we each have like almost like this fractal of the actual Philosopher's Stone of the planet in our body. And it is located between the root chakra and the sacral chakra, right above the pubic bone down the center of the body. Now, this place, what does it correlate to? It correlates to gestation. It correlates to manifestation. It correlates to the creation of life. And what did I just put out? I put out that entire course on the womb of activation because I said this was the portal to all creation and all of the mysteries you could unlock through this portal. Well, this is where the Philosopher's Stone sits. So this was like super cool for me to like be hearing all of this and having this all impact and realizing now why all of this information and the messages came through to clear. For those of you who took the course, you know that we had to do a lot of sacral clearing of things like shame and guilt and denial and all those things so that we can also clear the energy field around what we're now knowing, this Philosopher's Stone. Okay. So what is the Philosopher's Stone in your body? It is the place within you that is controlled by nothing. Okay. It is not controlled by anything. So the problem is though, I've done a couple videos on this. I've talked about this. This is why there is so much crappy energy directed towards this area in our body. When we think about the sexual abuse on our planet, when we think about porn, when we think about how we're being indoctrinated to look at relationships or sex, or, like just when it comes to relationships, if we're not doing the right healing, you may misuse this power, okay, by giving it away to someone who doesn't deserve it, who's not going to use it. Okay, so you lose that power by giving it to someone that you shouldn't be giving it to. And your mind also can control it through your belief systems, your preconceptions, your ideas. All of these things can really start to shut down that area. So the place in your body in which you have your ability to absolutely transform your life, transform your reality, is in this Philosopher's Stone. So it's like they say, that saying, if you want to change the world, you need to change yourself. This saying is so important to be grasping throughout this entire podcast episode, okay? Really got to understand that in order to change the world, you need to change yourself. Nothing in our physical reality is going to change until we learn to master our own Philosopher's Stone, okay? How to bring the heart-mind coherence and drive the energy through the Philosopher's Stone. Now, the problem where everything gets lost is that it's not just about heart and mind coherence. It is about the union of the heart and mind through the will or the action. So when you think about your arms on the sword, okay, the will and the action is what drives everything through the Philosopher's Stone and activates it. Okay, so you get your heart and your mind on board together, thinking and feeling aligned in coherence, and then to activate the Philosopher's Stone, you do so through your will and your actions. Okay, so this is where everything gets broken down. And I see this with so many of you in my we just talked about this on the Mystic event, okay? Awakening the Mystic, and how the question came up, what are my next steps, right? And this is a common question for a lot of people. And the reality is that if you only knew how important the action was, it doesn't matter, okay, how big the action is, it's just that you start taking some sort of action to start activating this fractal of the Philosopher's Stone to start changing your reality. So when this sword is used, it cuts through one reality to create a new reality. I've talked about this in my tarot readings. You guys, every time the Ace of Swords comes up, I talk about this. This means it's a new reality, a new beginning, a new belief, a new perception. What is that? You take the sword and you cut it through one reality to create a new one. And this is what the Philosopher's Stone is all about. When the sword meets the stone, it's creating a completely new reality for you. So this is the union of what I think, what I feel, and what I do. That is the equation. That is the calculation of activating this Philosopher's Stone. So it's about aligning your inner coherence, okay, with the magnetic power of the North Pole and dropping that through your own Philosopher's Stone. This is why it's so important to do healing with your root chakra, your sacral chakra. When we talk about a lot of emphasis, it's I want to awaken my third eye. I want to have my crown chakra open. And yeah, totally get that. I get that, but until you clear out your root chakra and your sacral chakra, that energy has nowhere to go and you don't get to activate your Philosopher's Stone. And this is why in my inner child course, okay, one of the first thing we target is the root chakra, then followed by the sacral chakra. Because what happens in the root chakra, the biggest wound there is fear. Fear of taking action, fear that whatever you do, you're going to be rejected or you're going to be abandoned in some way. Somehow you're not going to be able to survive, right? And the sacral chakra is the wound of guilt and denial. I'm not worthy. Someone else needs it more than I do. and so I'll deny it of myself. You have to clear these two chakras and get those in alignment to be able to fully embrace the power of this Philosopher's Stone. So this means taking your thoughts and your feelings and marrying them into will, right? When we think about a relationship, you have one person, another person, and then you have the third, which is the actual relationship. That is your will. The will is the relationship between your heart and your mind, coherence. All right. So you have, not you, we all have actually reached a time now where we need to stop being the philosopher only and become the Philosopher's Stone in our actual life. And this is the action that transforms our reality. This is the action that actually will start to transform the planet. So many of us have these visions of these idealistic visions of what we think New Earth is going to look like, or what our new reality is, years, decades, maybe centuries down the road, right? But that ain't going to happen just through simple magic if that magic doesn't incorporate action, will. All right. It's so important. And until all of us start to shift out of just being the philosopher, we will never have the power to truly transform our reality. So, why is this the time now to really get activated? So as you know, since 2021, I've been saying that I got these messages that this is the time to start manifesting. This is the time for you to really start focusing on what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to bring into this world, right? I've been saying that since 2021, and it's only been amping up. Why? Well, according to Matthias, because the shift in the poles has now moved from the west to the east, from Canada to Russia, this now marks a time where we have an opportunity to truly activate the Philosopher's Stone within each of us and in this world. Now, this isn't something that is only happening for us in this lifetime. This has happened in lifetimes before. It's just the mark of this shift now signifies another moment in time where we have this opportunity to do it. Are we going to do it? It all really depends on who's ready to take action. Are we going to get over our fears? Are we going to be willing to look at the obstacles and take the challenge on? In order to do this, in order to really have the reality change in our world, we first have to be so responsible for ourselves, for our own system, before we can actually change the system of this planet that we are all operating under. And so what is our own system? This is how you feel. So really learning to master your emotions, but also master your belief system, master your ideas, master how you perceive the world. If you don't shift those things and bring them into alignment and then take action, then if that doesn't happen, then you don't get to take in the opportunity that is presented to us right now in shifting the actual reality around us. So you've got to change the system within you. What system is controlling you? Really think about that. And I would say to all of you, over like this week, like when you journal, really get clear about what are the systems within you, the systems that you've created that have been maybe projected upon you from your earlier years and throughout your years after that, that you've taken on and are operating under. What do those belief systems really look like? So this is a time where all of us need to stop fighting for all of the ideas, for having the better idea, just getting more ideas out there. This is not the time to be really curious and constantly learning about this idea or that idea. Take some key ideas that you've really honed in on, okay, that you've really anchored into, and start developing them. Start taking your heart-mind coherence and start willing them into this reality. That is what has to happen now. It is the time to let go of being the constant learner, the constant philosopher, teacher, but to become the builder. Okay, this is our job now, to become the builder. Live in accordance to your truest self. Live in accordance to your truest self. That is so important now more than ever. If you are not living in accordance to your life right and to your truest self right now, you've got to start reevaluating what needs to first shift in your life. Okay, and what are the fears that are holding you back? And if you're looking for something to magically shift around you, some sort of circumstance to change, I can promise you that won't happen. Okay, unless you're like, I don't know, you've got that somehow designed into your contract, which, not many of us do. Not many of us do. And so stop fighting for ideas and start being the builder, start being the creator. This is not the time to search for more ideas. It's the time for action. It's the time to live the coherence of your heart and mind together, and so that you can manifest through your actions. And so again, what he talked about is, remember that because the philosophers were only really, truly full of ideas and unable to manifest a system of control, which was, Rome, basically the systems of Rome, so to speak, were enacted because it was absolutely pure chaos at the time. 2,000 years ago, when all the philosophers were coming forward and all these ideas were put forth, finally said, no, we've got to create a system that we're all going to follow because there's just too many ideas. It's just pure chaos. There's no one knows what to do. And so order was needed to be created. And this is important. This is why you can't resist the system, so to speak, in all of its entirety. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right. So when I say that, it doesn't mean that you have to live in the system that was created then that is still in place now. But there does need to be a system that we can follow, right? And how does that happen? It happens through practical steps, actions that we take. And so by each of us taking our own actions, we can help start creating the process, the system that many of us and those behind us can start to build and then follow. All right. So again, this is not the time to be just hoping that it's etherically in the world, out there in the ethers, and it's just going to somehow magically come together. It really does create a lot of us taking that feminine energy and funneling it through our masculine into a very specific action, direction of creation. And so ask yourself, have you created so many ideas on top of other ideas that you may have no idea how it's going to work for you right now? Perhaps that might be the thing, because I know that I've been there. Sometimes you can get so fascinated and so drawn into all these ideas and oh, it's this and it's that and it's all that you just completely lose track and sight of well, how do I even where do I start? Where do I make this happen? And that is one of the biggest I see challenges of most people is they're so overwhelmed. Well, where do I start? Well, you have so many ideas. Pick one. Just pick one and start with it. Don't worry about how it's going to fold into all the others, because through your action, the next brick is laid down and you're going to see it. The map actually unfolds for you through the action. And this is what a lot of people don't realize, is that you can have all these ideas, but until you actually put it into action, until you start actually living it, you don't actually know what that map is truly going to show for you. The map reveals itself to you through your action. And whatever idea of a map that you think you have, I promise you, there's going to be changes. There's going to be detours. There's going to be completely new pathways that open up that you didn't have on that map. And that comes through the action. Guys, how many years ago, 6-7 years ago, okay, when I started all of this, did I have any idea that I'd be here now on this podcast talking about this, offering a womb of activation course, offering an inner child course, having 50 guided meditations created, the alchemy subscription program, doing all these different I didn't know anything about really astrology back then. I didn't know anything about really inner child healing. I had just started. Did I know how I was going to integrate that? Did Did I even see myself creating the Forbidden Journey program and then putting it into a retreat? It all came through my action because you develop your skills. What is needed right now are your skills more than anything. And the only way that those skills get better is through repetitive action, the practical. And this is what was so cool about having that Awakening the Mystic, okay, in, learning how to integrate the mystic and the practical into one, and then going to this event and having all of that just reconfirmed for me even further. It is time for all of us to become that practical mystic in our life, to become that philosopher's stone. That's essentially what it is. The practical mystic is essentially the philosopher's stone. All right. So the reason why we're seeing so many outbursts within the actual collective and the system that was put in place, all right, is because the system tried to control us, right? The systems that originate all the way back into Roman times, that they're essentially all really based off of. It was like, okay, let's take all these ideas and all these spiritual concepts and all these like universal mysteries and stuff, and let's just lock them up because we got to get people organized. We got to get people in motion. We got to get people, doing stuff. But the way that it was done was in a way that was suffocating the God codes, the God spirit within each of us that has us connected to Source, the Creator, God itself. And so anytime that part of us is tried to be controlled, contained, it always finds a way to come out. And this is what we were seeing through the 2020, 2021, and even to this day, we're still seeing it, is that there's like the system is still trying to control, but all these people are starting to have outbursts. They're starting to be like, I've had enough. I don't want to take this anymore. I want to, and it could be down to the simple of like, this relationship isn't working for me. I got into this relationship because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to follow this path, and this was the next step on my path. And, marriage was the next thing, or being with this person was the next thing, and maybe buying this house was the next thing. Whatever it is, part of the system, the job, the career, whatever it might be, that all of us were going through a breakdown because God was trying to break through all of us. It had been contained for far too long. And of course, this isn't an overnight process. This was coming. This is over the centuries. This has been bubbling and bubbling. And of course, what happens? Our North Pole starts to move at this time, and we all start like, where we've got to find our north. We've got to find our north. So many are living in a system of control, both globally and personally. You have your own personal system of control within you. And this is the one where you want to focus on first. More than anything, I would say focus on that before you focus on anything globally, because until you have the answers within you, you don't have the answers for outside. You don't know what the system actually looks like. You need to live the system first. You have to prove that it actually works, that you can actually live in accordance to your own authentic self. So the only way to really break free is to not just have your heart and mind free of the system, but to bring them into coherence and then live that coherence into existence through your action. You have to be in creation, action, movement mode right now. And that is so important. This is why our bodies, our physical bodies are so important right now. And hence, what did we all go through in 2020? An attack on the body, right? An attack on the body, which is what we need to physically create. We need action. We need to be moving through this reality. All right. So I've released a meditation that was in my alchemy program. For those of you who are in alchemy, it's in there, but I've released it on my website. I'm leaving the link in the description below, and it's on building heart-mind coherence. Okay. So if you're struggling on how to build that, that meditation is perfect. I think it's like a 20-minute meditation. You can get it right now on my website if you're not part of alchemy. Okay. And that's already down there. I just got to remind you guys, because so many of us want change. But in order to have change, we forget the change is required. Change is required for change. And as simple as that sounds, we really don't grasp that so often. We forget the crucial ingredient, the active ingredient of change is change. And so you see your world and you see maybe your relationships, you see your job, like whatever it might be. And you're like, I want that to change. Well, if you want your reality to change, you have to change. If you want to be happier in your life, well, you've got to become a happier person. So what is it that you're not doing that isn't allowing yourself to access the happiness that is inherently already within you? It's suppressed. It's not activated, right? You're not letting it live through you in your actions. So what do you need to physically do to change yourself, okay, so that you can be in accordance with your highest and truest self? Change requires change. Now, what's really cool about this is that, a perfect example is at the retreat, and I've gotten full permission from Stacy to share this. Stacy she's in the chat right now. She was at the retreat. She's coming to the next one. I'm excited she's going to be there, and she can vouch for how transformational her experience has been. And I've worked with Stacy for years, and she's done a lot of the work. And I think what was key for Stacy too was she did the inner child course, and she took the final exam at the end, which is a shamanic exercise that I ask you to do when you've completed the course, and only when you've completed the course. And she did that only a day or two before coming to the retreat. Now, why is this so important? Because for Stacy, what did she access in her journey? She accessed the truest form of her inner child, a part of her that she has not been able to access since we've started working together. Truly access pure and utter joy. I can't tell you what a blessing it was to witness Stacy going through hours of joyous giggling, smiling. She danced for the first time in her life. She moved her body. Okay, and this is why I'm talking about this right now. She moved her body, and she has never danced in her life before. All right, moving for Stacy is very difficult. And in her journey, she was told to just dance. And she danced. She danced out on the deck under the moonlight. She danced under the stars. And every time, now, Stacy, and you'll appreciate this now too, after everything that I've just said on this podcast. But what about this problem? And what about that problem, right? She goes, what do I do about this? And the voice kept telling her, let's just dance. Just dance. And that was the answer to all of her questions. Why? Because there's no more time for thinking. There's no more time to have to overanalyze and go over it and philosophize about it. It's time for action. And action she did through dancing. And what was so cool is that the next day, because her body was not used to these movements and moving in the way that she did, a lot of bruising came up on her body the next day, bruising the size of her hand, okay, that would come up from the areas. And she finally, through movement, released trauma that had been trapped in her body. You cannot just will through your mind and your heart the healing that you require in this lifetime. Yes, that is absolutely part of the process, but it is part of an incomplete process. The completion comes through our physical action, our integration into this physical reality. And so because she physically integrated this into her reality, she started to release trauma that had been stored in her body for decades and decades. And it came out in this bruising. And it was just so intriguing to witness. And Stacy will vouch that when upon her coming home from the retreat, she had a complete shift in her job, a complete shift with her boss that she had never experienced before. And she didn't even have to ask for it. It just came to her. And so these are the shifts in your reality that happen from you taking the physical action to do the work, to face your fears, to face the obstacles head on, to do the thing that makes you really uncomfortable. You don't need more knowledge. You don't need, more experience in something based off of like learning more. You just need to start taking action right now. All right. Do you really think that at the end of your lifetime, okay, in this lifetime, when it comes to your time to exit this planet and you look back, do you think you would rather be the soul that looks back and says, yeah, I'm so proud of my existence on Earth. It was so easy. I didn't have to do much. I just skated through, rode the wave, and just did the bare minimum. Didn't really face all the challenges. So I don't really know what I'm fully capable of, because that was the purpose of coming to this planet, is to challenge yourself and work through all the challenges to see what you're actually capable of. And yes, it does feel difficult. It does feel uncomfortable. It does feel really shitty at times. And you are going to face failures and you are going to face rejection, but you keep moving through it. Look, guys, look at what happened to me in 2021 when I decided to get this, right? You guys have seen it. The numbers on my channel on this, look, right now, 21 people on YouTube. Okay. Now, I know that the numbers have dropped, but guess what? My life and my reality, I stayed true to me. I stayed true to me. I lived authentically for me. If I had caved in, I would have been doing it for other people and not for what was best for my reality, for what I wanted to create in this world. I knew what I needed to do and I had to face that challenge and I had to learn how to overcome it. I had to learn how to take my control back and not live in fear. And because I did, my business is way stronger now today, even though I have less numbers on the outside. On the outside, it may not look like it, but I'm actually way more successful on the inside and even in the numbers of my business and how my business is growing, because I'm actually starting to approach my business in new ways than I did 2-3 years ago. And I'm actually getting smarter and I'm learning more and more of my own value. And I'm seeing that as I face these challenges, I become more powerful. I get access to more information. I start developing more skills that I can then use to help more people who are ready for it. Don't worry about the rejection. I got rejected left, right, and center, up, above, from behind, you name it, I got rejected. And I'm still getting rejected, and it's okay. I still keep moving forward. I still follow my north. I listen to what my soul knows what's best for me. And you got to just keep pushing through. And so, there are going to be things that feel uncomfortable. There are going to be those things that you're just like, I don't know if I have what it takes. Well, you won't ever know if you have what it takes until you try to take it. Take what's yours, create it. And just, I want to reiterate, if you're ready for really big transformation, the Forbidden Journey Retreat is an option for some of you. If you're ready for that, that is going to be an extremely transformational event. The container that Christina and I create together, which I've never been more aligned with anyone that I've ever worked with. I've never had so much support. And she has said the same thing. You know what she said to me on the phone yesterday when we were chatting? Because I talked to her about something, like we both, okay, that's a whole nother story. Let me just say this. She said to me that doing that retreat with me was one of the proudest things she's ever participated in the last 3 years. It's the most proudest work she's done. And this is like because her and I have both persevered and followed our north and done the things. Her and I are both, that's why we work so well together, is because we're so practical as well. We're doers. But we have we've been able to tap into the energy. And so learning how to heal and go into the emotions, which I had avoided for a lot of my life, and learning how to learning how to move with the synchronicities and go with the flow, but then still take all of the power of being a doer as well, and marrying all of that together. And so the energy field that is created in that container of the retreat is so powerful to hold space for all of you to have the space and time to do the transformation, to go through your own healing, to go deep. And the depth doesn't just come from the actual journey. It came through everything we did, every exercise, every meditation, every ceremony. It was all part of it. So I was just at this event over the weekend, and I want to share with you something that happened to me because it was wild. And it didn't involve any sort of psychedelics. It just involved breath work. So, this is on the Friday. So, on the Friday, there was a woman who was speaking, and she took us all through this incredible breath work exercise. And I've done breath work before, but I haven't done this technique before. So, I was really excited to learn it, which, by the way, I'll be doing this with you guys at the retreat. This is something I'm going to be bringing into the retreat for 2024. And so we went and we did this incredible breath work, and she told us all, she said, be very careful, hold on to someone's hand, because you can pass out. You can get so high off this breath work that you can pass out and fall flat on like the floor. And literally 2 people over from me and my girlfriend, who I had met there at this event, within the first sequence of the breath, boom, this guy literally falls over like timber, like a tree, head hits the concrete floor. And I'm like, oh my God, and just, people rushed to him and he was fine, but it was that powerful. And so we went through the sequence of breath work, and I got high like I was on mushrooms high. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, my heart started opening. Emotions just started coming out of me, and I was just like crying, and I could just feel my heart opening so much. And then, we do this eye exercise that follows it again, which we're going to be doing at the retreat. And I had to look into my friend's left eye, and she had to look into my left eye. And I held that and I just stared directly right after doing this breath work. And within seconds, my third eye awakened in such a powerful way. I started seeing her feline ET self emerging from her physical body. I saw her starting to shapeshift. I saw all these different faces of her being, different lives of her started coming through. And the shape-shifting was so powerful. I was so overwhelmed, but I had to shake my head and turn away for a second because I couldn't believe what I was physically seeing with my eyes. It was so powerful. And she grabbed my hand. She's like, it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And so I went back into it, and I just kept watching, and I saw and I was just like, wow, so tuned in and what was coming through because of this heart opening and mind opening, the breath. Again, breath work is physical action, right? And it was just so wild to do that. And so I have this incredible heart opening, third eye opening, and my breath is just pulsing through my body, and my blood's flowing, and everything's just ready. And so then the next person on stage was a musician coming in to do a private musical event, because this was still for VIP access, and it was Parangi. And of course, I played a lot of Parangi in my Forbidden Journey Retreat music playlist because I love Parangi. And he was one of the most, that was one of the musicians I wanted to see the most at this event. I had the most incredible healing during that set of music, and 90 minutes. And this came after this breath work and this eye exercise, which now I'm realizing, okay, now I know what else to do at the retreat. Okay. Let me just make down a mental note here. So I was just so everything was moving through me. I felt so tuned in. The energy was activated. I had this beautiful flow of energy. I felt the music through my body. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to dance. I'm going to dance and let my body move in whatever way it wants to move. And this is important because growing up, I had gone to the clubs like since I was a teenager, right? I was a total clubber, teenager, 20s, even my early 30s. Like I was all into house music, EDM. I was constantly like up until the wee hours of the morning dancing, drinking a lot. And so in my mid 30s, when I really started to get serious about my spiritual journey and my healing and really kind of commit to it and not have these kind of pendulum swings, so to speak, I stopped going out, rightfully so. I needed to. And I stopped really I changed my relationship with alcohol. But in that essence, because I didn't want to be in the nightclub scene, I didn't want to be in that, I just wouldn't go to any of those events really very much. It was maybe like once a year or something I would maybe go, but I wasn't really that into it. And, I had disowned a part of me in my mid 30s. I disowned the part of me that loved to dance. And I really realized, and it actually was my intention going into the breath work, into that whole day, was I want to just have fun through dancing today. I want to remember. And so as I was dancing and it was the most fun experience. Towards the end of that 90 minutes, I had my hands over my heart and I was just glowing inside and outside. And I was just so happy. The music was so good and the visuals that were in the room, because it was in the Meow Wolf building. And so they had projectors on every wall and it was all psychedelic kind of visuals. And so I had that, and I had the music and the breath work and the healing. And I put my hands over my heart and I just kind of tuned in, and I heard my guides speak to me and they said, "You've brought her home. You danced her back home. She's there." And I just, tears. And I was so grateful. And it was such a beautiful healing experience. And I'm like, I just would have never thought that I would have a healing experience at one of these events, right? These festivals. And I never realized how important it was to bring that aspect of me home, because a lot of my focus has been on my inner child or teenage years. But we often forget that we still are disowning parts of ourselves as we go through this healing journey. We disown parts of ourselves that we think are tied into the trauma, the pain, the motivations that we were, under to facilitate our own sabotage. And so I realized that I'm not the same person anymore, and I'm not under those same influences, and that I could bring her home and I could let her live on, and that, I can still dance. And I was completely sober, and dancing and having the most incredible time. And I was like, oh, wow, like I really have transcended this, where, I now can bring parts of me home that I thought were all like wounded and needed to be reformed, so to speak. And she didn't really need to be reformed. It was my relationship with why I was doing it. And because I've healed that, because I've healed the why, the dancing can now just be dancing and fun. And it was just so powerful to move my body. And I had incredible synchronicities that aligned for me the following day to help me with the whole reason why I went to this event, which was to help grow my business, to be quite honest. And I had opportunities come up and I seized them. And I'm like, I was like, okay, this is happening. That's great. And so, it was so powerful to dance. And dancing is something that we've seen through the civilizations before us have used. And I've talked about this before. Dancing pulls the energy and beats it through your feet into the earth, right? You can pull those energies in. We are conductors. We are transmitters. And we are also receivers. And so we can receive and transmit this energy into the reality through the dance, the healing, the creation of what we want to do. It's through the action. Dance is just one action. But through the action, we create the reality that we want. We create the reality that we want. And so this is important work. And this is the time, with the magnetic pole having shifted over the last few years from Canada to Russia, and signifying a time now where an opportunity presents itself for all of us to activate the Philosopher's Stone on Earth through our own internal Philosopher's Stone in our body. Again, between the root chakra and the sacral chakra above the pubic bone. It's a tiny fractal of what the Philosopher's Stones of this earth actually is. And that when you are working through the Philosopher's Stone, you are doing the magnum opus, okay? Like the great work of the philosophers that the alchemists all talked about. That is the great work through your action. So I hope that this was, first of all, clearly delivered. I hope I clearly delivered the information for you, and that it was understandable and you could see it, and not just see it in your own mind, but you could feel it in your own heart. And you can also understand practically perhaps what you might need to do in your life next, tomorrow. Okay? Again, don't overwhelm yourself with a big task. Start small. It is actually, in fact, the smaller tasks done repetitively that will produce the big results. Don't be fooled by the dramatic big reveal through some sort of massive action and then it's all done. One, that'll never be as rewarding as the smaller tasks done repetitively, as you work through your fears, as you work through the challenges that you need to move through to do your healing. Remember, you will heal further through the action. If you think you've healed something, but you haven't yet put it to the test in your physical life, okay, whether it's through a relationship, whether it's through actually doing the work that you want to do and be paid for, whatever it might be, maybe changing your health, whatever it might be, you have not realized how much your reality can truly change. You have not realized how much healing is still ahead of you. And with that healing comes access to more joy, more peace. And this is an essential ingredient. This is your active ingredient. When we think about the active ingredient, what is the active ingredient of the Philosopher's Stone? Your will, once you have the heart and mind in coherence, in union. Okay, so again, if you're needing help with heart-mind coherence, the meditation, I have the link in the description below or in the show notes. And if you are really wanting extra, like to kick it up a notch, I highly suggest my Womb of Activation course. That is one of my most powerful courses that I have done. There are 4 activations in there, 4 clearings, okay? And I teach you all the downloads that I received around literally this Philosopher's Stone. The keys to all of the mysteries. It's through that womb space. And again, men, you have an energetic womb. Just like women, we have an energetic penis. Okay? We all have it. Use it. And so, again, I'd love to see so many of you at the retreat in this April. I mean, we've got that full moon in Scorpio. And again, that full moon setting behind the mountains is incredible. Okay? Incredible to see. And we have, on top of a full moon in Scorpio, we have the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction. Uranus, the planet of sudden breakthroughs, liberations, revelations, future visions, right? coming together with Jupiter, expansive Jupiter, wanting to really kind of help you. It's a benefic planet, right? Helping create a little bit of help, luck, opportunities. Jupiter is all about opportunities and growth and beliefs, helping you to shift your beliefs, break free of the belief systems, the system that is controlling you, okay, so that you can start creating the system that aligns, okay, with your own Philosopher's Stone. So that is April 24th through the 27th. Again, the sign up form, all the information is through the link in the description below. All right, I'm going to leave it there unless any of you have questions in the live chat. Any of you guys in the live chat? And let me know, did you guys like this episode? Again, please, if there's only one way that you could support me, I ask for a review on my podcast. If you haven't reviewed it already, please, on Apple, Spotify, any podcast app, just review the podcast. It just helps me. Whether you actually write a review or just give it a rating, I just appreciate it so much. And so let's see here. Arcturus lover. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, so if there are no questions in the live chat, then I will close it out. And I will have another video. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this week. I'm starting to come down with a bit of a sore throat and a little bit of flu-ish symptoms, probably because I pushed myself in Vegas, as Vegas does. I have to say, Vegas didn't win 4-0. It was a 2-2 split. Okay, so there was some balance. But I did have one or two rough nights. And again, not like rough like they used to be rough. Just like, hey, I'm 46. I can't do this stuff. But yeah, so it's, I'm trying to like get some sleep and lots of fluids, and I just instinctively knew to make myself chicken soup yesterday. And then that's when I started to feel the symptoms coming on. So, if I can't get the video out later this week, then, it will be out next week for sure. Move with Kathy. Your setting in your backdrop enhances your stunningness. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there so I can upload this to my podcast platforms for you guys on listening to the audio later. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you for sticking around and being here with me on this crazy journey called life. Let's do the thing. Whatever it is that you're envisioning for yourself, whatever you see in your mind, align it with your heart, and then start taking the actions today on what you need to do to change the person who you've been, who doesn't take those actions, and start becoming the person who does take those actions. Okay? This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This is about becoming who you truly were always meant to be and who you are inside, and letting it live free. Set her or him free. Set her or him free in this world and start living according to your true authenticity. Okay? Face the fears. Face the challenges head on. You don't have to start big. Just start small if you need to. Trust me. That will start to create momentum for you. And once you start to get that momentum, you're going to start seeing some of the shifts in your life. And you're going to say, oh, wow, you know what? It wasn't that bad. Now that I'm through that, yeah, okay, now let's tackle this one thing. All right? And again, remember, the map of your destiny is revealed to you through your actions. Whatever you think it looks like, I promise you, it is not what you're going to see when you start taking actions. It's going to be better, first of all. It's going to be better, and it's going to be more in depth, and it's going to be more profound than you can even imagine for yourself. Why? Because the person you're going to become is going to be capable of envisioning so much more for yourself. So that map is going to evolve and get richer and richer and richer. So start taking the action. Start doing the work. Follow through. Do the little tasks every day. And show up for yourself. Show up for yourself so that you don't stand at the end of this life and look back and say, oh, I wasted so many opportunities. This is not a life to waste your opportunity. And we are certainly in very powerful times now that we know where the Philosopher's Stone, or I should say the North Pole moving, that this is a time to activate the Philosopher's Stone. All right. So stop being the philosopher and start becoming the philosopher's stone. I love you guys. Have an incredible evening. And